Silk, the ancient fiber. Silk is considered one of our finest fabrics and also one of our oldest. Silk production dates back to 5,000 years ago. It was discovered supposedly by a Chinese empress who was drinking a cup of tea, and a silk cocoon dropped into her cup of tea, and when she pulled it out, it began to unravel and the silk filament was discovered. It was then a highly coveted secret in China for centuries, and only began to open up to the rest of the world when the ancient Silk Road came into existence. Marco Polo brought Western goods to China, including horses, saddles, animal furs, skins, weapons, armor. And China in turn brought to the West the silk, spices, gunpowder, So hence began the East-West trade, and silk was a big part of it. And now silk is produced in over 40 countries, and the study of sericulture, which is the raising of the silkworms and the spinning of the silk, is a fascinating story. I am going to put some links on the site for you to look at, but research it yourself. It's fascinating. The silkworm lives on mulberry leaves, which have to be hand chopped to specific sizes and hand fed to the worms that live in environmentally stable conditions. And the quality of the conditions of the silkworm and the sizes that the mulberry leaves are chopped determine the quality of the silk. So it's a very interesting process. So today I'm going to show you some different kinds of silk. So remember that silk is the fiber, and what I'm going to show you now are the different weaves of silk fiber that are available to us. First of all, I have a silk chiffon. So this is considered one of the lightest and most delicate of the silks. It's sheer, as you can see, and often used in evening wear or blouses. Here we see it draped on the bias, which is gorgeous. And next to it is a crinkle chiffon. So it's almost the same as the chiffon, but it has a little bit of a texture to it, like a very fine pleat. So you can see that it's become slightly more opaque than the standard silk chiffon. But here where it's gathered up, it makes a very beautiful gather. Next, I'm going to show you a silk georgette. So this is slightly heavier than the chiffon, but also has a really beautiful liquid drape. And it's also used for blouses and dresses. This is a silk organza. So the silk organza is very also transparent like the chiffon, but it has a crispness to it. So I'm going to pin it here, and you can see how it has a lot of body. So it's great for something where you want to create some volume. You can see that. Let me just tie this here. And you can see how it's really has a nice poofy quality to it. So I'm tying it on my mannequin with a little piece of elastic so we can see how much volume that has. So these light silks are really good for blouses, dresses, garden party attire. Now I'm going to show you the next one, which is a silk charmeuse. So the silk charmeuse, you can see, is quite a bit shinier, and it's opaque. And it has a satin weave. So again, it's a silk fiber, but a satin weave. I'm in my studio in downtown LA, so sometimes we have distractions, such as fire engines or people playing the trumpet and things like that. So here we have a charmeuse. Now, charmeuse itself comes in various different weights, and in silk, these weights are called mummy. abbreviated MM. And this is about a 20 weight mummy, and charmeuse would go up to about a 30. It would be slightly thicker and heavier. Oh my God. All right, and moving right along. This is also a satin weave silk, and it's a crepe. It's a beautiful satin crepe, and you can see that it has a heavier drape than the charmeuse. Let's see if we can create a little bit of a cowl so you can see the difference. Like if I pick up the same amount of fabric with the charmeuse and the satin, you can see that the crepe has a softer drape to it. So that's because it's a crepe weave, and if you recall, the crepe weave is such that it has very highly twist in the filament, so it creates a little more movement in the fabric. Here's a silk that's absolutely gorgeous. Okay, this one is satin finish on both sides. So it's a double face silk satin, and it's quite heavy and has a gorgeous drape, very expensive. And it would be beautiful for something that's kind of reversible, or where you're able to see both sides of it, but it just has a beautiful hand. Then we have, I have here today a raw silk. So now we're getting into a completely different kind of silk. This one is a raw silk that you can really see the weft thread to it, the lines going across. So this is the length grain going this way, up and down. And let me just drape this on here so we can see what this looks like. So this is considered more of a suiting fabric. Skirts, jackets, that type of thing. And you can see that it's much heavier and has a much more substantial, it looks good pleated, it looks good tailored, it looks good with top stitching. Some of the other silks that you might see would be a file or a shantung. A shantung is kind of shinier and lighter. Look in your closet and see what you can find that might be one of these more heavyweight silks. I also wanted to show you today these silks, which are considered more evening wear. This is a silk file, which has these lines. You can see the lines running across it. Here we have it on the bias, which obviously has a kind of a softer drape, and here we have it on the length grain with the lines going across. But it's a nice heavy silk, which would be beautiful for a structured gown. And then this one is a silk taffeta, which, as you can see, is really nice and poofy, has a gorgeous kind of light drape to it, and you can see how it really, really holds its shape, you know, kind of like an organza, but even more. Beautiful color. And then this is one of my favorite fabrics. This is a satin organza. And this particular piece is cut into a cascade, and this fabric is great for stage because it just has so much movement. It's just gorgeous on stage. It's light, it's semi-sheer, but not sheer like an organza. It's just gorgeous. And it's not expensive. I mean, it's in relation to some of the other silks, it's not terribly expensive. So it's an excellent fabric for stage. All right then, so that's silk, so see what you can find, and the next video we'll move on to how to sew on silk and polyester.